My name is Shamir Ghumra. I'm Head of Sustainability at Aggregate Industries. Aggregate Industries is a leading manufacturer of construction products materials in the UK, and we also export to Northern European markets. My role here at Aggregate Industries really encompasses two main streams, one of which is a real focus on the environmental aspects of our operations, so from a traditional license to operate perspective, and also from a certification perspective to the standards for quality, environment and health and safety. All of our products that are manufactured in the UK in wholly owned Aggregate Industries businesses that are not part of a joint venture are covered under responsible sourcing under the BES 6001 standard from BRE. So at the moment we have 7 certificates in place for aggregates, asphalt, ready-mix concrete, precast concrete products, of which there are a few subset within that, and the cementitious materials as well. To give you an example of how responsible sourcing works in action, if I look at one of our Charcon precast paving products, the EcoPave range of materials, they actually have a very high recycled content within them, primarily from a china clay stent source. So it's a secondary aggregate that we use primarily for that product, so to give it its high recycled content. So if we take it through the standard in that respect of how this product at a particular factory would have been assessed, we would have looked at the standards in place for quality, environment and health and safety of the facility itself. We would also have broken down the constituent materials of that product. So where does the cement come from? Do we have assurances for the quality, environment and health and safety of that supply? Where has the secondary materials come from? Where in this particular product, where have the aggregates come from? Where's the water come from? Have we just recycled it on site, or has it come from mains water, or is it abstracted? And so there's a range of permutations to the mix of the material itself. So those individual bits get picked up in the material traceability part of the assessment. Then that flows through to the supply chain aspect, which covers the certification of the suppliers in that supply chain, and then the standard goes into sort of the more environmental and social aspects of the assessment, looking at the plant and the location. What are their objectives and targets in place for monitoring greenhouse gas emissions? What do they do about waste? What do they do about water? How do they engage with the local community? So all these other things really add up together to build up the second half, essentially, of the standards, so we can have a bigger picture. So from standards, supply chain, environmental and social considerations to build up a whole responsible sourcing picture. There is a small link between responsible sourcing and the world of carbon footprinting, if we call it that. And I think it's important to draw clarity between the two subjects. Responsible sourcing is a very holistic approach to a range of social and environmental issues, considerations around the production of a product at a given site and location, and also talks about the standards and the supply chain. Carbon footprinting is addressed to a degree within one of the environmental considerations in the standard under the greenhouse gas question. But that is much more focused around having objectives and targets about measuring, monitoring, recording the impact of greenhouse gas emissions from that particular location and production facility. So there are tangible links between the two things, but they do occupy different spaces. So if clients or architects are after a carbon footprint number, they are not necessarily going to get that directly from a responsible sourcing certificate or standard or a record of achievement in that guise. The main two reasons that we pursued responsible sourcing certification was firstly to get some recognition that our products are responsibly sourced, and the BES 6001 framework gave us that opportunity. Prior to that standard being released, there really wasn't something in that space, and that's really the first thing. And secondly, it gives us an opportunity to reflect internally on a range of things that historically we've been doing for a number of years, but perhaps now it focuses our mind and focuses management time on looking at a broad range of issues at a particular location. The clear benefits for our customers in coming to us for our responsibly sourced products is really twofold. Firstly, it allows them to draw a comparison, be able to differentiate product groups or products that are from responsibly sourced manufacturers to those that are not. So there's a clear differential there. And secondly, there's a growing group of buildings, projects that are happening in the UK now that are either certificated to BREEAM, the Code for Sustainable Homes, or CEQUAL for civil infrastructure projects. And within those schemes, there are criteria and questions that actually recognise the use of products and materials from responsibly sourced sources. So clearly there's a more tangible, direct benefit in the second part. From a client's perspective, I think we need to really take the question to them and say, well, why don't you specify or allow the use of responsibly sourced materials? Because ultimately, for a lot of clients, especially with the current economic situation as it is, it comes back to cost. And responsibly sourced materials, I can only speak for aggregate industries, but they do not actually cost any more than a traditional material. So there is no reason why a client would not want to have responsibly sourced materials. There really is no reason why you shouldn't specify, request, ask for products on your projects to be responsibly sourced. There are a range of organisations now, many of our competitors now have followed us and have got responsible sourcing certification. So there's no shortage of materials by volume or mass or by market coverage that would potentially lead them to think about potential risks in specification that a contractor would then not be able to procure it. All the leading aggregate manufacturing companies in the UK have got responsible sourcing certification, so there's no real risk in that respect. The products themselves are no different to what they were inherently, in terms of the technical characteristics than they were before they had responsible sourcing certification. It's a level of assurance. It gives architects a bit more comfort, really. So I don't see why they are not beating down our doors, saying why haven't you given us your certificates? Why aren't you being more proactive and going out to the marketplace and telling people and shouting about all the work that you've done to be able to achieve responsible sourcing status? So architects, why not?